Ambient sound, eerie, wind-swept Russian plains, faint echoes of Kremlin bells, black and white footage of shadowy figures in grand halls fading to color images of luxury villas and anonymous silhouettes. No greeting yet. Dive straight in to build suspense. I am not made for this. I don't like being in the spotlight. I don't like being seen. These were the quiet words of Lyudmila Putina, the woman who stood by Vladimir Putin's side for 3 decades. While the world fixated on the man reshaping global politics, few noticed the silent figure lingering in his shadow. Yet, Lyudmila's story is anything but ordinary. From a modest flight attendant in Kaliningrad to the most reclusive first lady in modern history, her life became a tangled tale of isolation, power, and reinvention. Today, we're uncovering the hidden truths about Vladimir Putin's ex-wife, her sacrifices, her secrets, and the life she's rebuilt far from the Kremlin's grasp. And with recent headlines like France seizing her multimillion-dollar villa and Canada slapping fresh sanctions on her in 2025, her story is more relevant than ever. What does it reveal about the man who rules Russia? Stick around. This journey into the shadows might just change how you see the power plays on the world stage. Hey everyone, welcome to A Life Experience, where we dive deep into the untold stories behind the headlines. If you're into gripping biographies, geopolitical intrigue, and real human drama, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up if you're ready to explore. Let's jump right in with Lyudmila's humble beginnings, a life that seemed destined for anything but the Kremlin. Born in 1958 in Kaliningrad, that isolated Russian enclave sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania, Lyudmila Alexandrovna Shkrebneva grew up in a working-class family. Her father, Alexander Abramovich Shkrebnev, toiled away in a local mechanical factory, providing for the household in the gritty post-war Soviet economy. Her mother, Yekaterina Tikhonovna, worked as a cashier, managing long lines for basic goods in state-run stores. She had an older sister, Olga Alexandrovna Tsamaeva, and together, they navigated a modest life in a cramped communal apartment, typical of the Khrushchev-era blocks that dotted the landscape. From a young age, Lyudmila stood out for her linguistic talents and love of literature. She was passionate about Russian poetry, often penning her own verses, introspective pieces that hinted at a deeper, more creative soul. As a teenager, she dreamed big, becoming an actress. She took theater classes in a local troupe, immersing herself in roles that let her escape the everyday grind. But in the rigid Soviet system, such ambitions felt risky. Competition for spots at Leningrad's Theater Institute was fierce, and her parents pushed for something more practical. After high school, she enrolled at Kaliningrad Technical University, but the technical curriculum didn't spark her interest. She dropped out after 2 years, diving into the workforce instead. She held various jobs, a postal worker sorting mail under constant oversight, a nurse's aide in understaffed hospitals, and eventually a flight attendant for Aeroflot's Kaliningrad branch, the iconic Soviet airline known for its strict discipline. This role suited her adventurous spirit and language skills, letting her see glimpses of the world beyond her hometown. But it wasn't glamorous. Grueling schedules, endless scrutiny, and even a rumored internal investigation for selling sandwiches to hungry passengers, a kind act that could land you in hot water in that era. Despite these detours, her intellectual passions endured, especially for languages. She eventually resumed her studies at Leningrad State University, now St. Petersburg State University, specializing in philology with a focus on Spanish and German. Fascinated by romantic languages, think Cervantes and Goethe, her dedication set her apart from her peers. It was in Leningrad, in the early 1980s, that her path would irrevocably change. A vibrant city of art and hidden politics, it set the stage for a meeting that would pull her into a world of secrets. One evening in the early 1980s, accounts pinpointed around 1980 or 1981, Lyudmila Shkrebneva attended a show by the legendary Soviet satirist Arkady Rykin. His sharp, politically edged humor filled the theater with laughter and subtle critiques of the regime. Among the audience was a reserved young man, poorly dressed and unassuming, Vladimir Putin, an up-and-coming KGB officer in Leningrad's first chief directorate. Their introduction was set up by mutual friends, a seemingly ordinary blind date. Lyudmila's first impression? Not exactly fireworks. She later recalled him as poorly dressed, reserved, awkward. Something felt off, but an inexplicable pull kept her intrigued. Putin kept his KGB role secret for nearly a year, revealing it coldly, without fanfare, a reflection of his guarded nature. Their relationship was laced with emotional ambiguity and loyalty tests. Putin often showed up late without apologies, probing her patience. Lyudmila remembered waiting over an hour in the subway, tears streaming, yet saying nothing when he arrived. Another incident: a stranger followed and flirted with her, likely a setup by Putin to gauge her fidelity. After 3 years of dating, the proposal came, blunt and unromantic. "You know my character?" he asked. She accepted, perhaps more out of emotional resilience than overwhelming joy. They wed on July 28, 1983, in a modest ceremony with friends and family. No grand declarations, just a quiet commitment. By then, Lyudmila had graduated in 1986, a cultured linguist contrasting sharply with her husband's shadowy world. Married life brought no ease. In 1985, their first daughter, Maria, was born in Leningrad. That same year, the family relocated to Dresden, East Germany, where Putin operated under diplomatic cover for the KGB. Lyudmila, pregnant with their second daughter Katerina, born August 31, 1986, managed the children alone in a foreign land, isolated and unsupported. She worked as a linguist, but friends described her as emotionally drained, crushed by the pressures. Putin missed Maria's birth and unilaterally chose her name over Lyudmila's preference for Natasha. "I cried, but he never budged," she later shared. In Dresden, life blended espionage and solitude. Putin vanished for long hours on clandestine ops, while Lyudmila raised the girls in a monitored apartment. She mastered German, later teaching it at university. But the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, and the USSR collapsed in 1991, prompting their return to Leningrad, renamed St. Petersburg. In 1990, Lyudmila suffered severe injuries in a car accident, multiple fractures, lengthy hospitalization. Putin, then deputy mayor, didn't visit. He sent an aide with flowers, too busy hosting American mogul Ted Turner. This emotional neglect marked a deepening rift. The 1990s catapulted Putin upward, head of external relations at St. Petersburg's mayor's office in 1991, then Moscow in 1996. Lyudmila taught German at St. Petersburg State University from 1990 to 1994, then briefly worked at Telecom Invest. When Putin became prime minister in 1999 and acting president, she stepped into the first lady role, one she never embraced. From 2000 to 2008 and 2012 to 2014, Lyudmila remained elusive. She oversaw a fund for Russian language development, notably blocking a 2002 orthography reform by the Academy of Sciences, deeming it unnecessary amid economic turmoil. Critics accused her of stalling progress. Supporters praised her cultural traditionalism. Publicly, she shunned state dinners, international trips, and interviews. Family photos were scarce. Daughters Maria and Katerina studied abroad under aliases for privacy. Russian designer Slava Zaitsev quoted her, "I don't like traveling, I don't like public appearances. I wasn't ready for this." Her discomfort was evident. In memoirs by German friend Irene Peach, Lyudmila called Putin a vampire who drained her energy. "He never helped during my pregnancies. I carried heavy bags, pushed the stroller, all while expecting our second child." Journalist Natalia Gevorkian, in a 2000 biography, noted, "He never held me. There are women men admire. I don't think I'm one." By the early 2000s, Lyudmila vanished from public view, secluded in the Kremlin, avoiding everything. Inner turmoil surfaced through close accounts. Peach's book, Fragile Friendship, painted Putin as distant and authoritarian. Gevorkian highlighted Lyudmila's loyalty amid unreciprocated love. Zaitsev reiterated her aversion, "I'm not made for the spotlight." Fissures widened. By the 2010s, appearances were rare. On June 6, 2013, post-ballet at the Kremlin, they announced their split on state TV. Putin, "It was mutual." Lyudmila, composed yet tense, "Our marriage is over, we barely see each other." Finalized April 2014, it sparked rumors. Convent retreat? Ousted for others. In 2015, she remarried Artur Okoritny, a triathlon-loving businessman 21 years her junior. Revealed in 2016 via documents, it symbolized her fresh start. Post-divorce, Lyudmila, now Okoritnaya, embraced anonymity but affluence. Divorce finances are secretive. Officially, she claims half of Putin's declared assets, modest salary, Petersburg apartment. But probes like the Panama Papers estimate Putin's hidden wealth at $40 billion plus offshore. Her share? Likely substantial, enabling a comfortable exile. Rumors of a convent were unconfirmed. She co-founded the Center for Interpersonal Communications Development, CDIC, chaired by Okoritny. They reside in a $7 million Biarritz villa, seized by France in 2024 for Russian ties. She's linked to properties in Spain, sold hastily in 2023 to dodge sanctions, and Switzerland. Her business, Car Money, a car pledge loan firm, raked in $700,000 profits in 2022 despite sanctions, transferred to evade EU restrictions. CDIC owns Moscow's historic Volkonsky House, Tolstoy-linked, renovated into commercial space leasing to banks and fast food for $3 to $4 million annually via Meridian and Interservice, both under her maiden name, with sister Olga involved. Sanctions hit hard, UK in 2022 for preferential state ties. Canada in June 2025, alongside Putin's relatives and figures like Valery Gergiev. Ukraine synchronized these in August 2025, imposing 10-year asset freezes, travel bans, and trade restrictions on her and Okoritny. She shuns interviews, living quietly in France, a stark contrast to Putin's spotlight. But let's dive deeper into the risks shadowing her new ventures. Businesses like Car Money and CDIC operate in a volatile Russian economy, amplified by political instability. With ongoing sanctions tied to Russia's actions in Ukraine, her assets face constant threats of freezes or seizures, as seen with the Biarritz villa. Political shifts, like potential regime changes or escalating Western pressure, could devalue properties or disrupt rental income from Volkonsky House. For instance, if tenant banks like VTB or Sberbank face further restrictions, revenues could plummet. Anecdotally, sources close to Russian elites report that ex-spouses often diversify offshore to mitigate this, but Lyudmila's ties to state-linked entities make her particularly vulnerable. One wrong geopolitical move, and her empire crumbles overnight. Psychologically, this reinvention speaks to a resilient introvert reclaiming agency. Insights from her discovered live journal blog, uncovered by Navalny's team, reveal a woman who vented frustrations about her marriage through psychological quizzes and anonymous posts, hinting at suppressed independence. She scored high on traits like loyalty and endurance but low on extroversion, explaining her post-divorce pivot to quiet business pursuits, a therapeutic escape from the vampiric drain of her past life. An anecdote from a 2002 biography. During a rare interview, she described feeling tested constantly in her marriage, forging a steely resolve that now fuels her entrepreneurial risks. Comparing to other elite ex-wives, Lyudmila's path echoes but diverges. Take Melinda Gates, who post-divorce channeled billions into philanthropy via the Gates Foundation, embracing public advocacy, a far cry from Lyudmila's seclusion. Or Dasha Jukova, Roman Abramovich's ex, who jets between art worlds in New York and London, leveraging wealth for cultural influence without the same sanctioned scrutiny. Russian parallels like Veronica Lario, Berlusconi's ex, fought publicly for settlements, while Lyudmila opted for discretion, perhaps to avoid Putin's wrath. Unlike Raisa Gorbacheva, who was outspoken as First Lady, Lyudmila's low-profile post-split mirrors a survival strategy in authoritarian shadows, wealthy but wary. Amid this, conspiracy theories swirl, but many are debunked. Rumors of her entering a convent post-divorce? Unconfirmed whispers, likely Kremlin disinformation to portray piety. Wilder claims, like her being an imposter or replaced, stem from doctored photos online, for example, viral images mistaking her younger self for figures like Ursula von der Leyen, but no reliable sources back imposter theories. They're fabrications from fake news mills. Psychological experts dismiss such paranoia as projections onto Putin's secretive world, not grounded evidence. From Kaliningrad streets to Biarritz's shores, Lyudmila Putina's life mirrors Russia's turbulent elite. Did she flee power willingly, or was she sidelined? With ongoing sanctions and seizures, her story evolves. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives. See you next time.